we're back with Ted for a little mini interview because we have her here, so we're going to go for just a few more minutes, about less 21 minutes or less, and just chat about. I really want to talk about, Ted, your sort of journey to Farcaster. How did you get here? Because you are FID 239. Like,
Yes.
by the way, that's my area code. I keep meaning to go find stuff for you. And I'll bring it to FarCon. I'm just going to be grabbing things that say 239 on them and bringing them with me. So how did you end up on Farcaster? And what got you so engaged that you are where you are now? I'm not going
Yeah.
to say Farstocracy, but if we had any,
Last night at dinner, someone called me a Farcaster influencer, and I was like, no.
you are. You're actually
Um,
in the new. I don't know if you saw the Dune dashboard that Ilemi put together. We did a little interview with him, and he created some little subcategories. And I think you were at the very top. Like, you were either at the very top, or that he had like a VIP influencer
oh,
star. I
wow.
think you
I'll
were in the
have to look.
VIP one. With There's not too many who have like that the way he categorized it. So yeah, you are. So tell
Yeah.
me your journey from jumping on this crazy platform to Farcaster
My
influencer.
funny, yeah. There's actually I cast about this on Valentine's Day, but at Sam, just SAM, not Samantha, had introed me to Dan to get like I was asking him about career advice. And I was like, I don't really know anybody who's worked in crypto, like deep in crypto for a while. And he was like, oh, I know this guy, Dan. He's worked at Coinbase for like, I don't know how many years, and, introed me. And then Dan was like, oh, I created like this decentralized social network, and kind of like left it at that. And then a week later, I was like, hey, Sam, what what is that called again? And he was like, Farcaster. And I was like, oh. And he's like, do you want an invite? And I was like, kinda. And he's like, you kind of want an invite? And I was like, yes. And so then
Kinda.
all of a sudden, I know, you're like, now. And so then all of a sudden, I got an invite. I onboarded. Sam was 39, I think. I'm
Oh
239.
wow.
So I was like
Okay.
200 users later. And I joined, and I'm
That's
like,
cool.
wait, all of these are like OG crypto people. It was like Mark Andreessen and Fred Wilson and everyone else. And I was like, here I am. And my first cast ever was, hi, I'm looking to learn more about crypto. Does anyone have good Web3 resources?
Oh my God, that's amazing. And of all the people I mean, that's the people to ask. I mean, amazing.
Yes, but
That's
also like
crazy.
just totally ousted myself as like anyone shit. Um, and so that was kind of the start of it. And then I just wasn't really on Twitter and started casting, and people actually responded. And I would say like major kudos to Dan, because Dan actually like commented and liked a bunch of my stuff, which is why I feel like a lot of early Farcaster people like are like feel friends with Dan, because
Yeah.
like we had,
Yeah.
he was just
Yeah.
really good at like engaging and making you feel like heard and like listening and responding. And so I just kept doing it. And then I was like, Dan, am I posting the wrong type
Well,
of content? Because I would like post photos of like my coffee or like the beach, like kind of like early
so
Instagram,
very
like,
Instagramish. Yeah.
yeah.
Because that's
And
what
he was
you're,
like,
is that where
no.
you were primarily posting at that point? Because you said you weren't really on Twitter, which you are
Yeah.
now. So was that more because of the crypto connection? Like, that you ended
Uh
up getting more involved on Twitter, or?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
because I
Interesting.
wanted more like news, I guess. But I'm not
Yeah.
really a social media person, so that's why this is like
No,
hysterical. Was that it
that's
hasn't
hilarious.
like on Instagram, every other platform I've ever had has been very private. Like I've always made it private.
Oh
And it's
wow.
only this like past year where I've made it more public everywhere else.
That's
Yeah.
really interesting because you do a lot on TikTok too. And
That
so is that been fairly new then?
um secret is that my like TikTok thing was born out of a kind of like, oh, I wasn't feeling super challenged work wise, and was like, okay, I need a new challenge and I need like a creative outlet.
I love this.
Everyone was like, you should see if you can go viral on TikTok. And that's where that came from. So it was more so like this like fun little game. And then it started working and kind of like taking off, and I had
Love it.
brands reaching out to me. And then
That's
work
wild.
really picked up. I'm dealing with Farcon now, so I haven't made a single TikTok video in the past month. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got a lot going on. That's really interesting though, because I think you might have been one of the first who weren't really in crypto, like early crypto OGs on Farcaster, because I would imagine that otherwise there were people who worked at Coinbase, there were people who, were in Silicon Valley. So that's
Yeah.
really interesting. And I think that says a lot about like how your content is a little different. Like it is a different, and it brings a different perspective. And I think that's
Oh,
important to
thank you.
growing the appeal, because not everyone's going to vibe with that. And speaking of that, we have you to thank for this. Although I added the GM Farcast
Oh,
her. Yeah, this
Forecaster.
is the Farcast her little NFT, and you created that, and I loved it. I loved it so much. So we have this whole plan for like selling things with this stuff
How
on
do
it,
I
and we
get one
just
of
haven't.
those?
I will make you one.
I want
Eventually, we will
one.
have a little shop, and you can buy it in a frame. I don't know, but we haven't gotten there yet. But I am definitely making you one and bringing it with me to FarCon.
I'd love
But
it.
I loved that you sort of said to Dan, and he kind of, I guess, gave a little pushback on it too, and was like, I don't know if we need a Farcast her like a woman's focused channel. And I think you were very helpful in sort of helping him understand why it would be useful. And
Mhm.
what I've seen come from that is a lot of women, getting directed there, getting more comfortable, and then sort of spreading out into the
Yeah.
rest of Farcaster. And I think that's hard for some of the guys to understand, is that this is 90% men. Like there's
Yeah.
very few of us here. And sometimes we just need to see the other people that, okay, there's other women here. Okay, I just feel a little more comfortable. It's not necessarily that, we don't need you to be in that channel too. It's just like we just need a place where we can find each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most
That's
important
how I
thing.
tried to
Yeah.
that's how I pitched it really, was I was like, it's not a channel to silo, it's a channel for discovery, because right now
Yes.
it's impossible. And also I was like, everyone's PFP is like a random thing, and you
Yep.
can't tell who's a woman and who's not. And I guess like the benefit for me was that when I joined, like it was 2021, every major PFP whatever was like World of Women, like crypt, like all of those ones. So no one actually knew. And so a lot of people thought I was a guy. And so they just like, I never noticed any of the gender stuff, because I was just like, oh, people are treating me here. They don't know what I look like. It is what it is. But now I feel like it's much more social networky, where, you're meeting people in real life, where it's really important to have a place where you can find other women. Just makes you
Yeah.
like more comfortable and like feel at home.
Totally. Yeah, totally. That's, it's just a different vibe. And it's also helpful for other women to see that and know like, oh, this is a safe place. Like,
Yeah.
because if you were in crypto for a while, and if you were around in 2021, holy crap, like the discords were awful. So, there's a lot of women who ran from crypto because of that. So we want to make sure
Yeah.
we're like kind of saying, no, no, it's not like that. You're comfortable. You'll be comfortable here. It's fine. Come on in.
Yeah. Shout
Um,
out to
yeah.
Adrian
Yeah.
and Ivy and everyone else who's like co-host. I remember because, you know, uh, when Dan was and also I think the reason it's also been very successful is because it was actually created before permissionless channels,
Yes.
which allowed it to, I would say, build and grow in a very organic, intentional way. Even though we had some spam at points in the channel and everyone was like, what's going on? Like, we got to figure it out and really build the culture and the values. And now it's thriving. And I don't think it, like, kudos to Dan, first off, for like, being like, okay, yeah, we'll do it,
Yep.
especially before permissionless. And then really kudos to Adrian, who just like fearlessly has led it and really been thoughtful about it. And I have so much respect. And obviously, she's your co host. Like, we both love her to death. But
Love her. Miss
yeah,
her.
she's
Miss her this week. I'm excited to see her next week. Next week, we're gonna both be in Denver together
wait,
doing a
when are you?
whole
I'm
bunch of
going
stuff.
too. So we have to see each other.
Hey, I didn't know that. Oh boy, this
I'll
is
only be there
exciting.
Friday through Sunday, but
Okay.
I'm there.
So Friday, we're gonna be in the press area, in the podcast area, streaming, doing mini interviews for like from 10 to 12. So, and we'll
I'm
be
so
we'll be
happy.
around. So we're going to be doing so many things, but we'll let you know. Make sure you come to our event, by the way. I didn't even get to mention that. So
You
make
have an
sure,
event?
if you haven't yeah, if you guys haven't if you haven't RSVP'd yet, we do have an event. I will send you the frame so you can RSVP, but we're planning some fun on Saturday morning. So I don't know if you're going to be there still, but if you are, you definitely have to come. It'll be fun. We're doing breakfast karaoke. Yes. Yes, we are. Yep.
Wow. Oh,
By
that's the
request.
breakfast karaoke you were talking
That's
about.
breakfast karaoke
Oh
in Denver.
man.
Yep. Because
That's fun.
we're crazy. Because they asked for it. So the chat asked for it. We give the people what they want. So I love hearing sort of your journey here, but also what made you stay? Like, what was the thing that got you coming back every day and diving in and really connecting with people? Like, was there anything in particular, or was it just like you just started meeting people who were interesting and it just
I
kept
started,
getting you
yeah,
back?
I think I started people actually, I don't know if Grace or Brian are here, but
I think Grace is in
Brian
the
was
chat.
doing Unlonely
Yeah.
for a while, like early, like it was still watching
Yeah.
YouTube videos, and it allowed people on Farcaster, because he built it exclusively on Farcaster and was bootstrapping from Farcaster. We were then able to, group chats didn't exist, direct messages didn't exist. Like Unlonely became the place where we were able to hang out, like quote unquote, in real time, right? And that's when you can like really build relationships and bonds and like, have kind of like these inside jokes that weren't possible in like early 2022. And so I would say a large reason I actually stayed is because of Unlonely.
Wow, that's
Because
amazing. That's
yeah, I
amazing.
know. It's like that's why I'm so like I'm obsessed with the team. And Brian and I became friends that way. That's where Matt and I ended up doing like Friendsgiving. And that was one part. And then I started going to a lot and hosting a lot of the meetups.
Mm,
And I think it was just like the real, like you met people in real life. And then also you could put out kind of like controversial opinions and people would engage with it, and it wouldn't be
yeah.
like, I'm blocking you, how dare you. So those were kind of like the two things, is that like you would meet people online, and a lot of times like the behavior in person matched the behavior online, and it was really
Yes.
fun. And like I think that's what I always say, like the alpha is in the in person. Like Farcaster is useful, but the most useful it would be for you is if you take it and like bring it to life elsewhere.
Bring it to your, yeah. I love the URL to IRL. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that tagline for FarCon. I think that's fantastic. And 100% very similar experience,
Yeah.
especially when I went to FarCon last year and I was in that room with those folks and I went, okay, this is special. This is different. These people are some of the smartest people I've ever met, and I don't know
Yeah.
even know how I got in this room, but I'm staying. I'm
Yeah.
staying and I'm diving in and this is it. Like I knew right then because once I met people in person, it was like, ooh, these people are real. Like they are who they, pretend to be. It's not fake. It's real. And that was
Yeah.
huge for me. So even if you're somewhere where there's not a lot of people nearby, like make an effort, find some folks who are in your area, set up a small meetup. Matthew from events.xyz will
Yeah,
help
he was
sponsor
on
something.
earlier.
He'll help sponsor. So if you want to do a little mini meetup, go do it for sure. I totally agree with you there. Let's talk about FarCon real quick. Very
Yes.
excited. So very excited you guys took this on. When we left FarCon, the second day of FarCon last year, Grin and Cameron were trying to talk me and Adrian into doing it, and we're like, I don't know if we want to take that on. And I also said at that time, I'm like, I really think it should be in on the West Coast since you did it in Boston anyway. And I think it should be a team over there. So I was so glad to see like you guys jump in and take that on. I think it's going to be amazing. I have been unbelievably impressed so
Thank
far
you.
with like everything, the design, just everything. So, what are you looking forward to? What do you want to talk about with FarCon? And also let people know like where are you at with passes and all that stuff so that we can let them know where all that stands and maybe prevent
Um,
1700 DMs.
yeah, I think it'll still happen, but
It will.
I appreciate the concern. Okay, so FarCon is happening May 2nd, kind of like May 1st actually at night, but May 2nd through 5th in Venice, which I'm super excited about because it's my home. It's also the home of Merkel, and the Merkel team will be in town for it. In terms of passes, there's like it's super fun. So like Wednesday and Thursday are kind of like summit days, and then the rest of the weekend is a hackathon and a bunch of side events that are quote
So
unquote official. But then there will also be tons of other side events that people want to host. We just needed to like plant the seed to like get people thinking. Um, in terms of passes, I don't know if everyone saw my cast in the FarCon channel yesterday, is that we are way over capacity for the venue on the summit day. So I know everyone is like, can't you find a larger venue? And I'm like, we cannot find a larger venue in Venice unless we want to move to downtown, which is just like out of the question. I'm not going to have people come to LA to go to downtown. But that being said, I think we found a really epic spot really close nearby for a satellite event,
Oh,
meaning
cool.
we can open it up to more people. And so all summit passes have pretty much gone out. Community passes are rolling out and we'll continue to roll them out. If you did not get, I have to be honest, if you didn't get a pass and you think you should have gotten a pass, instead of posting in the Farcon channel, like, oh, I didn't get a pass, I haven't heard back about my application, like, that's okay. But instead in the Farcon channel, like, post why you want to go to Farcon so bad and be like,
Mm,
I haven't heard back. And like, here's why I want to go to Farcon and here's what it means to me. And like sharing some of those moments, like, matters so much more than just saying, like, I applied and I didn't hear back. Like, I hate to break it to everyone here. There's 700 people who haven't heard back. So you're not the only
wow.
one
That's
if you haven't heard
crazy.
back yet. And like, we're just doing this on like in our spare time. So that's what I would say is just like to anyone who's doing it, do that because
And if you
yeah,
haven't, so I was an event planner in another life. And I planned a couple conferences. And if you haven't done something like that, it's massive undertaking, massive. And this is a
yeah,
volunteer team. This isn't, a lot of people don't realize that like Merkel's not planning this. Like they're coming as guests.
yes.
And
I'm like, please come, please come.
yeah, like you're begging them to come. Like it's not, they're not involved. It's totally a volunteer operation. And last year it was 70 of us who went. It was tiny. So I think the, expectation this year of like more than double seemed reasonable until frames and degen
Yeah,
like blew up everything.
yeah.
Like
I mean, and
it
we
was
knew we
totally
were gonna
like
have.
200. That'll be perfect. That'll be
We thought
great. That'll be
200 max. I was
yeah,
like 200
yeah,
max. Who's gonna come here? And then
yeah.
also,
That
I'm just
seemed
like
completely
maniacal.
reasonable at the time.
Yeah. Right? And I'm like
Yeah,
maniacal about the experience too. So I'm
I
like,
know. Yeah,
if people want to come, like we have to make it bigger. And so it's been really fun working with a lot of other Farcasters closely on it. I think that's my favorite part so far is just like
absolutely.
building something with them and bringing it to life. And again, like shout out to Graham and well,
Yes,
Graham.
he's been
I
he's
do
been a
also
great
mean shout out to Graham,
yeah.
but I combined Grin and Cameron's name to say Cameron. But shout out to them for really starting it last year. And I know that's how you and Adrian met. So
Yes, that's how we met. So we met at FarCon, and then that is what sparked all of this. So when I say that FarCon changed my life, that's not an exaggeration. It literally
same.
did, like,
Oh well,
changed my life.
yeah.
Well, Farcaster for you. Yeah, but FarCon will as well. So it's, and it's funny, the first time I heard of you was at FarCon last year from Matthew. I was having this really good conversation with him, and we were talking about, and he was telling me about Boys Club, and I had never heard of Boys Club, and it was like, and he's talking about Ted, and he's like, and I'm like, oh, Ted's a woman. Like I did, so it was really kind
No
of
one
that was
knew.
the first time I knew that. Like it was really funny. So when I say like, yeah, it definitely changed my life. So if you, hopefully, we get to accommodate a lot more folks who want to go, and I know there's my DMs have been being hit by people going, can you do? I'm like,
Good. Okay, if
I
anyone
can't
says
do
it,
anything.
the new thing for anyone here, if anyone asks you, can you do anything? I have personally reached out to people who I have noticed didn't apply
Oh,
and who are like
interesting.
very active and I'm like, "Oh my God, they're an amazing person. Like they seem to be really contributing. They're rolling up their sleeves, they're hosting things, they're building things." And I said, "Hey, like you haven't applied to FarCon." And they're like, "Oh, we thought it was like sold out." And I was like, "Well, we want you there because you seem exactly like the type of person that we'd love to have there." And so the more that you do that and you can demonstrate it, like the team is looking out for that too. Like we'll never turn away people who are really like,
It
passionate
really comes
about what
down
we're
to just
doing.
like being able to accommodate enough people, like in the IRL space. It's like
Yeah.
there's limitations, but hopefully, I also love seeing people talk about doing FarCon in India and FarCon in
Yes.
Paris and
You're doing
like
FarCon
do
London.
all those things. Like if you this is a permissionless conference.
Mhm.
Nobody told them to do this.
Yeah.
They just did it. So go do that. Go do the same in wherever you are. If you can't get to
Yeah.
California or wherever, like do it where you are and make it happen because it'll be worthwhile.
And
And you'll find
also,
support too.
everyone
You'll
knows that
find
you're going
support.
to be doing episode 100 of our.
100. Yes, 100 on that Friday. So excited with Dan and hopefully Varun. We haven't we
Yes.
haven't confirmed with him. Dan is confirmed,
Okay,
and Dan
Dan's
said he's
confirmed.
bringing
Okay, because
Varun.
I'm like,
Yeah, so
I'm
hopefully.
trying to figure out because I think a lot of people want to go to GM Farcaster and the
Yes.
hackathon starts on Friday too. So
There's a
We're
lot
feeling
happening.
figuring out the timing.
Yeah, it's a lot happening. And
Yeah.
also, Nouns is talking about maybe doing something after that, like event, and
Oh,
trying to add
amazing.
on as well. So
Yeah.
lots of crazy stuff happening. It's going to be really fun. I know we're running a little long on time. I want to cover one more thing with you before we go, and that is you have been experimenting with frames, and I'm showing these on the screen. This was February 17th, 2024, experimenting with Farcaster stories via Nanar. Throughout the day, buttons on the second frame will jump, skip forward, check back at 3:30, 7:30, 10:30. I love this. I don't know if it'll play for me right now. We'll see. Sometimes my connection likes to not do that when I'm streaming. But it was amazing. It was amazing to walk through your day. And then you also
Thank you.
did this other experiment. Don't skip the start here step. If you do, you'll regret it. And when you clicked on start here, it gave audio to your frame. And that was so fun. So what have you been liking about frames? What did you learn from your experiments, and what are you going to do next? I got to get some alpha on your frame experiments.
Um, okay. I have a bunch of experiments. I don't know if, shout out to Greg Skrilloff. I adore him. He's like truly one of the best humans I've ever met in my life. But when frames came out, I was like, I need to do this. And I'm like a baby engineer, like, barely can code. And we hopped on a Google Meet at like 5 p.m. after work ended on Friday and just hacked into the night to create my first like Zoomer or Boomer, kind of like BuzzFeed-esque frame. And then from there, like I had the code, so I just like kept iterating on it. And then we thought it'd be a really fun way to announce FarCon, like new FarCon
Loved
announcements,
that.
because it's
That was
more
great.
interactive than like
Yep.
a thread. I'm like not a big thread
So
fan.
much better than the
And
thread. It was just so fun to like click through and see what was next. And I loved how you did that. I loved it.
thank
So good.
you. I should
Thank
have
you.
added a back button, but I
Oh yeah.
didn't.
Didn't think about that.
But next time. And then I kept iterating, and then all of a sudden I did like a FID gated frame, which was actually like quite hard, but I think very interesting for, exclusive token gated content. And then Nanar, I love Rish and Manon.
Love
Manon,
Rish.
I don't know if you know this. Manon is Priyanka's brother.
Oh, I did not know that. No.
Yeah, so like the artist
We had
behind
Rish on
you.
here a while ago. Yeah, I have to push that out back out again because that was a really interesting discussion, especially now with frames. But yeah, that's interesting. I did not know that. That's exciting. Our artists for
Yeah.
today, my background.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so once they did their no code frames, I was like, okay. Also mine or my code was bad or my hub was bad, so it was just like timing out.
Oh.
And I was like, used Nanar and was like, holy smokes, this is so fast. Like you can actually click through it. And so that's where the story idea came up, was like, oh, I've always been I've wanted stories as a more personal way to express yourself and to connect with people, and I'm more aesthetic in some ways. And so I was like, okay, I can use this with it. It's going to take a little bit of like, bootlegging, but we can do it. And then when I did the sunset, I was like, damn, I wish there was audio in it. And I was like,
Mm,
I'm so frustrated, like there's no audio and it's just a GIF and not a video. And I still loved it. It was like my favorite
so good.
frame that I
Yeah.
put together. And then the next day I was like in yoga class, at the end of yoga class, when you're supposed to like chill out.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm thinking about
Never works.
Farcaster. Um, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have an idea. I have a workaround. And so I
Nice.
like
Love it.
ran back and was like, I think I can make this work. And just chose my favorite ad that and that I felt was on brand and tried it. And then with Frame Studio, you can try like right then and there, and it didn't take all that long. And I was like, wow, I'm gonna see if people like this. I have no idea. I was obsessed with the idea,
I
but
loved it. I loved it.
I did not
Yeah.
expect the reception it got.
It was amazing. It was fun.
Yeah, we could
It was
literally talk
creative.
forever. I probably
I know. We gotta wrap up. But it was so cool to see, and I was like, it gave
thank
me
you.
ideas, and I think that's what I think that sums up the Scenius, right? The Farcaster Scenius is that like I can see you
Yeah.
do one thing and then be like, oh, I could use that for this, and then you might see something from, oh, that was really cool. Let me iterate on that. And I think there's this, and that's the whole incubator feel of Farcaster.
Yeah.
And that's why you hear FC is the new YC all the time, because of that vibe, right? It gets you
Yeah.
excited, it gets you creative, and that's that. And when you see the team shipping so fast, that energy
Yes.
also drives you. So
And I
It's
will
incredible.
say too, some people were like, why wouldn't you just do this as a video? Like, why didn't you make it a video? And I was like, the point of this wasn't to make
Yeah,
a video or to share an ad that everyone has already seen 100 times. Like,
right.
no one would have watched that video. And I will think what I'm trying to do with frames is to just again back to experiment and show and like inspire people and like spark it because I was feeling like jaded by the one click mint ones which are valuable when they're valuable, but I was like what else can we do and how can we push and be on the bleeding edge, and I can only do this, like I can't do any of like the cool, mint this with dgen, like I wish I could figure out how to do that, but right now I'm like okay, I just need to show other non-technical people who like may
Yeah.
not know all the ins and outs of like what's cool content that you can be making.
Right, and then it gives exactly because I want to see more about what people's days look like and what they're doing, and I think that's fun, and that's how again back to it's a social network, not
Not
social
social
media.
media.
It's
Yeah.
a social network, and I want to connect, and I want to know, that was really cool to see what you were doing throughout the day and see your sunset, and that was amazing, and all
Thank
those
you.
things like that was fabulous. So I loved that. I love watching your experiments. I think it's so fun. I appreciate that you put yourself out there
Thank you.
and share those things with us because that takes a lot to do that. So I appreciate it. And anything I want to ask you just a couple quick lightning round questions that we ask everybody,
Oh, we
and
all,
then
I
we'll
think you
wrap it
also
up.
wanted to ask me about DGen too. There's so much we could
Oh
talk about.
yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, really quick, let's talk about DGen, and then really quick we'll do some lightning round. But you were pretty much like muting the DGen channel, and
Yeah.
now we have evolved to
I
you
mean,
are
everyone is
one
still
of the angel
unfollowed.
investors in
Yeah.
DGen.
I
So
mean,
what happened there?
as a, I think about it in two different ways. Is one, as a user, like as a user of this social network, what do I want out of my Farcaster experience? And then another one is as a like passionate like community builder as part of this network, what do I think is valuable? And so I think, a lot of people are seeing it as like one and the same. And I'm like, no, no, no. Like I also can like build and invest and whatever. And so as a user, I don't want to see that. Like I really care about, kind of like high quality
Quality.
discussions. But on the podcast that Johnny and I are dropping later today, we
Yeah.
go into a lot of degen. And
Oh,
what we
cool.
think is incredible about it is that it created um, if you look at degen, it's like the best example of how a small community can scale. And if you think about every single channel could then end up having its like own currency in a way, like degen is just like setting the standard and the example for what every other kind of channel or community is able of doing. And I've always say this, like the reason why social media, I think I'm like very bullish on kind of like decentralized social or like social built on blockchain infrastructure is because a lot of times in crypto, we just think of it as like economics and transactions. And I'm like, but in the
So
real
much more.
world, all of that stuff happens in a society that like only is able to happen because of social networks. And like, so I'm always like, you should start with social networks and then transactions will happen between those people, and e-commerce and everything kind of is rooted on a social layer. And I think Jake has like kind of nailed this. And also I say this in the podcast, I'll say it to you. If he launched a degen app, like a Farcaster client that was exclusively focused on degen, it would be the second most used
Absolutely.
like Farcaster client right now.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I'm like, this is actually amazing for the ecosystem because he's pushing the boundaries more than anybody else. It's the most innovative thing I've seen on decentralized social, the way that it's not just a meme coin, it's like a meme coin with values. So it is therefore a community. And I love a lot of people in it. And then people are like,
Yeah.
well, you were like, and I was like, I don't want to see a bunch of degen
Right.
in my
Right.
channel. And like, that's not what I come here for. But I appreciate and I respect and I actually support it because it doesn't affect me on a day-to-day basis anymore.
So that whole entire like arc of yours, like I think is the best demonstration of what is different about Farcaster and the people who use it is that there's nuance. There's I can start here and change my mind and it's okay.
Mhm.
Like there's it's not black and white, it's not like I have to dislike all of this. I can dislike parts of it. I can appreciate others. And I think it was really cool. Adrienne had a similar kind of journey. She's never done anything with meme coins at all. I always play around with stuff. I consider myself a part-time DJ. And for her, it was like, she was like, well, why should I claim this? And I'm like, well, it is worth some money. And she's like, nah, that's not enough. What else you got? And it was like, oh, well, here's this thoughtful dev and there's a different approach. And she's like, oh, okay, now this is interesting to me. So I think
Yeah.
there's like, I think you had a similar, experience where it's like, you needed it to be more than just
Well, it
another meme
bothered,
coin.
what
Yeah.
actually I think what happened is that I didn't get notifications about it on Farcaster first.
Oh,
I actually got Twitter notifications where
hmm.
people were tagging me in like,
Yeah.
symbol degen. And so I didn't immediately notice because like I think I wasn't,
It's
my
interesting.
turn like when I'm
Yeah.
working. And so I think that also put me off is because some of my perspective was that it was actually like a Twitter originated thing that bled onto
Interesting.
Farcaster and not a Farcaster native thing that went out. And
That
so it
like
wasn't
pulled
until
people from
after that
Twitter in.
day.
Yeah. Interesting.
Exactly. So it wasn't until
Yeah.
the end of that day. I think I had like a wild day. I'm like, guys, what is this? Why am I getting tagged in this? Like, what is it? And everyone's like, oh, wow, you chose a bad day to be on.
Chose a bad day to not pay attention.
Yeah.
That's
I was like,
funny.
oh, man.
That's
Oh,
funny. But I do
yeah.
think it's been I think it's interesting and I really love, we had Jacek on and it was really interesting to hear him talk about it. Very different from any other kind of meme coin dev or meme coin project that I've seen. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Yeah, we need to make some adjustments to things, but that'll
He
happen.
is.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen. We'll get there. So okay, so lastly, I got to ask you a couple little questions. First one that Adrienne always likes to ask, so I'm asking in her stead. Who was your first online friend, or where did you meet your first online friend? This is always the one that kind of
It was
surprises
actually
people.
Farcaster. Like, Farcaster
Was it
people were my
really?
first, like, truly online friends. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
I think if I had to say who it was, the first person I ever met from Farcaster, who I didn't know before, was Alok. Alok
Really?
hosted the first ever Farcaster meetup in
Oh,
LA. Well, I think they might have done a dinner elsewhere, and he was the first one, and I showed up, and I thought I was going to be late, but I was actually the only one there with him, and I was like, "Hi." And I was like so nervous because I didn't know who was going to show up, and then it
oh
ended up
wow,
being tons of people.
that's awesome. Oh, I love that. What's your favorite channel or
I love
channels?
I love Six's channel right now. I'm like really vibing in Six's channel. At least that's where I'm spending most of my like when I'm like passively reading. I really like what Six is doing.
Nice, nice. We love six. And
Genuine.
what's your favorite Farcaster meme?
I don't know. I have the one that I think is really funny was when like the spam first started showing up, where that guy told Dan like, "Don't cast again, thanks." And it was
That
like
was
a
Mole.
flashing can
Yeah,
meme, but that
yeah.
one like still cracks me up because I just think it's like really funny when anyone trolls the
When
founders.
trolls
And so
Dan.
that one just really got me because it was also like the last meme. Like I guess Mole was like, but
Yeah,
Mole was like big, big. Whereas like I'm
yeah.
like this one, that stuff still
And small.
felt like an inside joke in a way.
Yeah.
So that
Don't
one is
cast
one of
again.
my favorites.
And then the mole was don't cook again. That's so funny.
Yeah.
And I think like, I think that's part of what I love about Farcaster and the people in it is the jokes, is the memes.
Yeah.
It's the sense of humor and it's top down. It starts
Yeah.
with Dan. The fact that he can take a joke, he can be trolled and roll with it and play off of it. And I think that is a huge part of the experience and the ecosystem. So that's what we like to focus on here. So Ted, anything else that any call to actions, anything that
We
I
could
should have
literally do
covered? I
everything.
know.
We could talk forever. The call to
Hours.
action is keep watching GM Farcaster, everyone. And do not DM me about
Don't DM
do
her
not DM me
about
about
Farcon.
Farcon, but do share, like if you feel like you want to have a more compelling application, either reapply, but it's probably better if you just post it in the Farcon channel and then other people vouch. Like I've had a couple people like I Speak Nerd. I don't know, his email must have gotten lost or it didn't get delivered, but then everyone was like, where's I Speak Nerd's invite? Like, what's he doing? And I'm like, oh, like I'm so glad that everyone brought this to my attention because I was like, oh, just didn't get to his email. And then somebody else, we were like, you didn't check your email. But like, because other people were like, we want you there, please, and like are publicly vouching, it was really helpful. So,
Oh,
anyways, I'm
awesome.
just like, be more creative in your ways to get into Farcon.
Be more creative because the DMs are just a mess right now. We needed a
Yeah.
whole search function just to find things. Thank you so much, Ted. This has been a blast. I
The
cannot wait
best.
to see you in Denver. I didn't know I was going to see you in Denver, so this is really exciting.
Same.
Thought I was going to
I'm
have to
so
wait till
excited.
May, so this is really fun. So I will see you in Denver. Adrian and I are looking forward to it. I hope you come to our little meetup if it fits into your schedule. If not, we're going to connect at a couple other places.
So many
And
places.
see you next week. So thank you, everybody, and bye bye. We'll see you Monday for another GM Farcaster. Bye.
Bye.